America. I'm in the chaotic soup of this new world of what's going on, and I'm in Kansas City, so I'm in the cradle of jazz.
Kansas City, man. Follow me. What is it? Come with me if you want to go to Kansas
Kansas
City.
City, and they play it after any game we win for the Royals. They play that
Really?
Beatles version. Yeah, Kansas City, here we come. So yeah,
Oh,
it's always piping through.
the history's there.
Absolutely, right there on 18 and Vine, man. Um,
Yeah.
so where exactly are you located on the planet?
So I am in England, just south of Cambridge. So I'm
Okay,
basically in between Cambridge and London, which
okay.
is good for bouncing into town for the gigs, but also, I can go running in the fields, and my kids grow up in a nice little village near Cambridge.
I dig it. I dig it. Yeah, man, all of the good rock, all of the good music all came from England. All of the good ideas, even for TV, it all comes from England, and then America does its spin on it. I mean, you got Bowie, you got Radiohead, you got the Beatles. I mean, you got everything. So,
Yeah, man. But do you know what's interesting about that? And I had this conversation on the steps of Morgan Freeman's Blues Club, Ground Zero.
yeah,
I was talking to Bubba O'Keefe, their tourism guy down there. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because it all came out of the States originally. And
yeah.
then what you had was like England was inspired by it and tried to do their own version of it. And then it sort of got bounced back over to America. And then suddenly you got people being inspired by our version of what was going on in the States.
Yeah, yeah, that's totally true. Yeah, because there was that early heyday with, BB King and Elvis and all of that, and then it came back, and then there was all this cross-pollination that was going on. So it's a good organism that's fed off of each other. So it's
Yeah,
it's a good thing, you know.
without a doubt, that sort of mutual respect, inspiration, and I love it really. I'm really, as you know, I'm really into the history of it all, where it comes from. I think it helps you make the music more authentically.
Yeah,
And so it's always good to know, when you're dealing with a bit of music again, where did this first come? Okay, this is a Sun Studio thing. This is a Memphis thing. This is
yeah.
this is a Clarksdale sound. This is a New Orleans thing. This is a Chicago thing, New York, or Liverpool or
Yeah.
London, or it helps you understand it. Otherwise, it's just 100 years of music that's impossible to get to grips with.
Thomas Jefferson used to always talk about understanding history and the rulers you have, because if you don't, you'll repeat it. And in
Oh,
America, we're learning that the hard way right now. I mean,
I mean, some of these ideas have been tried before.
yeah, and they didn't work. So it's wild. They just released the documentary. There was a Kansas City filmmaker that released a documentary called Sounds of the City. And they claim in this documentary that the beginnings of rock and roll started in Kansas City. So when the jazz machine was roaring in the 30s, we were one of the only cities open because Tom Pendergast allowed liquor to flow during Prohibition. So when COVID came around, Kansas City was one of the longest running cities that had music going continuously in the world. So at that time, Jay McShann, who had Charlie Parker in his band, was kind of the predecessor to all of the modern Kansas City cats, was doing kind of rock and roll before Chuck Berry, before all of those cats took it over. So they're
Oh, that's it.
claiming that Jay McShann was really kind of the originator without getting the actual gold seal that he did it. So it's interesting when you do peel back all of those layers, whether it's
Yeah.
acknowledged or not, if you look in the history and etymology, it's fascinating.
Yeah, and that whole north-south line through the states there, from Kansas City, Chicago, like all the way down through to the south is what a period of history, but what an amazing like physicality of music moving,
Uh-huh.
as the people moved
Yeah.
and chose to be maybe in a different part of the states or chose to relocate. And then of course it ended up sort of getting bumped across to New York as well,
Yeah.
didn't it? And New York hung on to it. I was in New York just 3 weeks ago.
Oh, cool. I need to get up there. I haven't been up to those clubs. I haven't been to the Vanguard or Smoke, and I just don't. I'm gonna faint, man. When that happens, when that moment happens, I'm gonna just totally go into this like dreamy fog state and just not know what to do. It's gonna be awesome.
I
So,
went to Vanguard on the Monday night. I saw the big band there, and I think they've been continuously playing in that venue for 80 years. They were only shut down for a couple of years in the 30s, I think. And it's fast. That's why I went, because I hadn't been for 20 years to New York. I've spent a lot of time in the other places in the last 10 years. And it was good. It was good to go and touch base. Look, we know it's like the academic central of music, I
yeah,
suppose, these days, right? There's a whole lot of very well schooled jazzers and musicians, just getting pumped out in that city. I mean, some of the stuff I heard being busked in Central Park, just throw them on into Ronnie Scott's in London. I mean, it's insane levels
Yeah.
of technique, right? But we also have to remember where it came from,
Uh-huh.
and to share some emotion, like to communicate some soul and a story or an idea.
Absolutely. Well, on International Jazz Day, we're going to have the Count Basie Orchestra here in Kansas City celebrating the Count's 90th. And I think about all of those old echoes and just kind of just how much Count did. And I was talking to the band director a few weeks ago, and he told me, and I didn't realize this, the first song that was played on the moon in outer space was Count Basie with Frank Sinatra, Fly Me to the Moon. Buzz Aldrin hit play on his little tape deck. So how
It's
cool is that?
incredible. Yeah, man. I mean, and we can't forget those early bands and their importance, because also like music is built on it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like all the and actually it's great to talk about rock and roll and blues and jazz all in the same breath, because it all got built on it. And some of it moved in certain directions, and some cities enjoyed a certain flavor more, but it's all there, man. Like you follow the rock and roll chords back to Tutwiler train station just south of Clarksdale, sort of thing.
Absolutely, 100%. Well, man, let's hop in here and get into your latest album and get into your world of music. So, thank you for taking a minute out today. I totally appreciate it.
It's well, I really wanted to come and have a chat with you, especially because of the inspiration behind my album. I'm actually flying out to Germany tomorrow for what is the biggest collection of European jazz. Well, everyone in jazz in Europe, and in fact, a lot of Americans. It's called Jazz Ahead, and that's the next 4 days in Germany. And I thought it was a good time to just catch up and chat with you, to talk about the album literally
Yeah.
before I fly it out to Bremen in Germany, and start talking about it with the rest of like the European jazz scene. So I feel like we're connecting the whole world of music together. It's cool.
It's the nice jazz constellation in the night sky. And that's the funny thing about it is that once you start talking to journalists, this has been done, it's been produced, it's been mixed, and you're getting into this promotion. So it's almost like you get a revisit while you're
Oh,
also brimming with the next project in mind.
wow, there's two really good points you make there. Like firstly, it's so nice to take some time to just live with the album like as a finished piece of music.
Yeah.
You spend so long. I mean, God, now for this album, I really tried to do as much of it in the moment as we could, right? I was inspired by my trip back to places like Sun Studio in Memphis and Muscle Shoals Sound Studio down in New Orleans. And I wanted to do as much of it in the moment, but you still have other things going on. You're adding other layers. You start editing and mixing. Then you get the mix process, and you're
Yeah.
thinking, does the cello need to be louder in this bit? Should the vocal be? Is that vocal timbre? Is the reverb? Or I mean, you bury yourself in it, right?
Yeah.
And you can't hear the music. And once it's finished and it's literally pressed on a piece of vinyl, and then you start sharing it with the world, you start hearing it as the piece of music that you've created. And I love that moment. I remember when I was deep in the editing last summer and thinking, I'm really looking forward to when it's just finished. I can't change it. And then you hear other people starting to have a relationship with it, right? And then you start seeing it in a different light as well. So
Absolutely.
it's great. And you said this thing about the next project, because and jazz musicians are the worst for this, right? Like we're so constantly reinventing ourselves and being inspired, and we're practicing and we're improving. Sometimes by the time that album's finished, you're already onto that next vibe and that
Yeah.
next idea. But I truly believe we have to be a bit careful as musicians. You've got to give the thing that you created, and you've got to remember the emotion you had when you were creating that thing and you wanted to share that with the world. You have to sit on that for a little while,
Yep.
and not be like, oh yeah, but now I'm thinking about this idea.
Uh-huh. Yep.
And so that's what I'm trying to do right now. I'm like, you know what? This album took me a long time because of COVID, because of the trip, because of it was all originals, and I've done covers for the last few albums of jazz covers, jazz standards. And I think, yeah, I'm just living with it. And like you say, tomorrow I'll be out with all the international jazz community, including guys from the States. And I'm hosting a jazz jam on Friday, which will be a very international affair. So the next few days, I mean, we've gone ahead of ourselves. We're talking about promoting a thing we don't even know what it is, but
Yeah.
that's what's happening this week.
That's it. Sometimes the jazz cats have to pull back the improv lever, slow it down just a little bit, right? I mean, it's fine to be an existentialist, but sometimes you just got to be right there, which is what I've learned from the jazz community, doing so many interviews and swimming in this music, is that there's this beauty of just that temporal moment where it can dissipate into the air and no one will ever hear it. Like the cats busking in Central Park. Like there is that beauty to it, but there's also this beauty of being the creator and getting so blinded by the sheet music and all the particulars of all the cats and everything to just have a reflective moment. It's like having kids. Like when you're a parent, it goes so fast,
Yeah.
right? That's
Tell
what,
me about
thank
it.
God we take pictures and videos to be like, all right, yeah, that makes sense. That
Oh,
actually happened.
because suddenly they were 2 and then they're 10 and then I mean I'm not there yet, but I hear other people say then they're 18 and they're
Yeah,
25. Man, look, there's so many great points to get into there. Like jazz and improviser. Now, and I will just say, like my album, I'm not even sure it's a jazz album, right? This thing
right.
that I've been working on because I tried to just let the music be whatever it needed to be.
Yeah,
Tried not to dictate it. So I'll sort of caveat with that. Is it jazz? Is it blues? Is it funk, rock and roll? Is it singer-songwriter? Is it pop? It's probably a bit of all of those things, which is a nightmare when you're trying to get into playlisters or radio. Play my thing. What is it? I don't know. But the improvisation thing is really interesting because it was always just a moment in time,
hmm
and it was a feeling shared with a bunch of people on stage that was communicated in a group fashion to a group of people sitting down, and everyone had an influence on what happened in that moment. That was where it all started, right? You then record those improvisations, and they become set in stone.
yeah,
And then you've got to be careful with that because then you get all the people study those solos, and we learn those solos. And sometimes you've got to remember, like you said, it should just be a moment in time. But there's so much recording now of live that now the live musicians are concerned about taking any chances or making any errors because you've got Instagram, TikToks, YouTube comments. Oh, dude, I think you played the wrong note over that C7 flat 9 chord. And you're like, yeah, but I was just thinking about being sad.
right, right.
Right? So it's and I honestly I battled with all those ideas whilst putting this album together. Because if you look at that early Elvis stuff, you look at that 60s soul stuff, wasn't always in tune, wasn't always in time, but it captured a feeling. But you take that approach these days, and you are going to be going up against something that's been quantized and tuned and is perfect in inverted commas. And it's hard to sit up against those things that are perfect and say, yeah, mine's slightly flawed, but hey, what about the vibe?
Yeah, that's it. That's one of the reasons why I don't play an instrument. I mean, I can play the drums. I got a little bit of that rhythm side of things, but I really just haven't. I've made a commitment that I've committed myself to so many difficult things. I want to let music be a visceral world. I want it to be this thing that watches over me. I don't want to hear the PA. I don't want to hear the chords. I just want to come from a very because I had friends that were musicians in my 20s and they'd always come off stage and they would have this whole list of things that just went on. And I'm like, it was great. I loved it. What are you talking about? And then I'm sure that it just happens when you have a music mind. You can't shut it off and you get into these particulars, but I just love the fact that it can wash over me. It's that warm vinyl analog vibe of Kinda Blue. It's that feeling that sucked you in and makes you feel this art form in a very specific way.
You're not sitting there going, oh, that's a nice sharp 11th over a B flat major 7 chord, right? You're just like, that sounds good.
That's it.
And this balance, and again, if like you said, the jazz musicians have to be careful with it because you can educate yourself to a level where it's almost impossible to just play the blues,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Because it's too, or even if that's what you want to play, you're worried that if that's what you, I remember there was somebody, one of the really big Instagrammers, funk band guy, and he went and did a video on Instagram, and he was like apologizing for only playing a simple scale process over a solo, and he was like, "But dude, that's what I wanted to play," and everyone was having an opinion on it, and I remember having this moment a few years ago watching something about the Coldplay band, because there's something beautiful when a bunch of musicians work the Beatles, right, the Stones, whatever, the same people working together to put together something. Now, if you develop your musical mind to a certain level, it's impossible for you to just sit on those three
Yeah.
chords.
Right.
right? You're going to try and do something else with it.
Yeah.
Let's do this. Let's change the rhythm. Let's change the harmony. Let's change the key. And again, I wanted to for this album that I've made, this Return from the Source album, I did want to try and get a group dynamic, and I tried to not write the songs at the piano
Yeah.
because I've done that in the past, and I've been led with my intellectual brain of this chord should come next. So with this one, I tried to write while I was running in the shower, doing the washing up, and just come up with these melodies, and then sit down at the piano and say, how do I make sense to that?
Yeah.
And like the song that's getting streamed the most from the album is Brother, and that's mostly three chords
Yeah.
with and all minor chords,
Yeah.
with a little couple of jazzy turnaround. But really, it's like I'm so proud that I allowed myself to be that simple.
Yeah.
Some of the other songs are
Yeah.
not that
Totally.
simple. But
Absolutely.
Stevie Wonder did this thing, right? And I'm sorry, I'll let you
No,
ask
no,
me a
you're
question.
good. No, you're good.
But Stevie Wonder, I think, perfected the simple singable melody, but the foundation of it underneath is really complex harmony,
Yes. A hundred
right?
percent.
You can listen to those songs and go, "That's a beautiful melody that moved me." You start learning it, and you're like, "Oh, I see what you did there."
Because it
That's
is. I've done that with Stevie. I'm like,
yeah,
wow, all of that underbelly is just crazy. And that's
man.
coming from somebody that's not trained musically, but I just know that all of that is just bam, it's right there.
And he can hear it. His use of what we call like these backdoor turnarounds, these backdoor 2/5s, like he's using them to beautiful effect, and probably because he's hearing it.
Yeah.
There's a lot to be said for Ray Charles and Stevie, and George Shearing, like the guys who don't work visually, and we have to try and do that, don't we? Sometimes, like, man, turn your brain off. Someone says to me, you practice, you rehearse. But when you get to that songwriting or when you get on stage, you just gotta forget it, man. You just gotta let it go. And that's a Miles thing as well, right?
Yeah, uh-huh. Yeah, for sure. So there's a cat named Matthew Whitaker. Are you familiar with him?
Yes.
I saw him live. He
Oh man, I
channeled,
would love to.
dude, he channeled Stevie on stage. He was so amazing. He had a Rhodes behind him, piano in front of him. You could hear him shouting, kind of in that old school Apollo theater vibe, and
Yeah.
just nailing it. And this is the thing that's most miraculous about this guy. He is an absolute blinding beam of light. Nothing is going to penetrate that joy and and it's not just being a musician, but that's a part of the joy. It's this guy is absolutely a monolith of just feeling good about being on this planet, and it radiates, and that's Stevie too. What a great thing, man.
Look, Pete, it's a double-edged sword, that one, because I I absolutely viscerally feel and enjoy music, and when I perform it, I try and communicate that. But if someone comes up to me afterwards, and this happens every week, somebody will say, I'll say, "Oh, how'd you enjoy the show?" or something, and they'll say, "Oh, you just looked like you were having so much fun, right? Or there was utter joy, or I love the way you and the musicians were communicating." And part of me feels like, but it was good, right?
Yeah, right.
Don't tell me, like I could be having fun and be useless.
Yeah, right.
But that's not the point they're making. But you have to have a word with yourself and say that's not what they're saying. And we know musicians, especially right now in 2025, can spend a bit too much. Well, and I'll say it. I won't say where I saw it, but one of the gigs I saw in New York, it wasn't like all the musicians were on the same stage. They were all there at the same time,
Yeah,
but I didn't feel the connection. And that's the beautiful thing about
yeah,
music. And we got to try and keep that alive today in a world where all the technology, I mean,
yeah,
AI.
yeah.
I saw a thing yesterday, and it's the first time I've seen this, but somebody played in a part on a horn or a guitar, and then AI turned it into a vocalist, and he typed the lyrics in, and you're like, wow, I'm trying to go backwards and trying to be more raw and
Uh-huh.
pressing the vinyl, and you're like, but look what's coming, man, and it's coming fast, and it's coming for all our jobs.
It is. It totally
People say
is.
music is safe.
Well, but I think that original art, and I think music at the end of the day, it may go through turbulence, but I think at the end of the day, the human mind is going to be a thing that ironically we're going to grab onto and be like, is that human? And really feel it kind of in a futuristic movie sense.
we get it with, the news, right? And videos,
Yep.
and what can we trust and what can we believe these days? And we're already at that point
Yep.
where we almost believe everything or we believe nothing,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
right? And this is why people are getting away with terrible things around the world, because denial is easy. And but music is going to be the interesting next level on that,
Yeah.
which is, at what point can you not tell it's not human? And then does it matter? I mean, I like to think that there is something about the soul and essence of human, that will trump, and share emotion.
Yeah.
Um, but we don't know. But then sometimes my tech friends say to me, "Man, just let's go with it. We're here, we're living, we're alive, we're on the planet. Let's just see what happens and keep making music while it does."
This is the thing that someone told me, the best summary of any fear or anything that we do with AI. AI is a reflection of us as humans. And if we reflect that joy or we reflect something that's genuine and real, it mirrors human beings. So we got to be very careful with what we project and what we do as humans.
Yeah, because it's like holding up a big mirror to us.
Yes, it is. It is. Most certainly.
God. Well, that's true. I mean, that's why, keep we must keep putting out the music that's going to be analyzed. I,
Yeah.
I remember when streaming started, and all the record companies didn't want to jump on it because there wasn't profit to be made there, and that enabled the tech companies to take over a world that should have been really the record companies' domain. And I
Yeah.
bet there's a few big record companies kicking themselves that we now stream via Apple and Amazon and not Sony and Universal.
Yeah.
But I remember when this was happening and people were like, "Don't stream my music. I'm not going to put my music out there. I'm just going to sell CDs." And I'm like, but you're just limiting. If you're not putting it out there, you're limiting the reach it can have.
Yeah. And
So,
that's
so
it.
let's get over it. And
Yeah. We've ran away. We've done really good with running away with our time here. So I want to ask you this.
yeah,
At the end of the day, what gets you up every day? Why do you love creating music?
that's a good question. Um, I've had this. Now I'm a dad.
Yeah.
I reflect and I watch how my kids engage with music. And I realize, looking back at my own childhood, this was not a choice for me. I am viscerally affected by sound
Yeah.
and music. And it and and I think, we have a much better understanding of neurodiversity now in the world.
Yeah.
And I think I'm starting to understand, because I remember growing up thinking, how are those other people not affected by this song like I am? Or
Yeah.
not even that specific song, but by any song.
Hmm.
And I'm now looking back going, okay, maybe I just sit somewhere on this spectrum that means that it does affect me more than it affects other people. And I saw something the other day that talked about super fans. These super fans who follow bands around and who will really deep dive music, they probably are also more impacted viscerally by music.
Yeah.
So I'm accepting now that I need it. I need it. And even if I wasn't making it, if I go on holiday and my family say no music, we're just going to have a few days of family. 3 days in, I'll start humming. 5 days in, I'll be like, somebody show me a piano.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah. I do because I have to, I think.
So if anyone wants to get the album in various formats or they want to catch you live, what's going on, the warm months are upon us, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, the album is everywhere. So you can just go to your streaming platform and put Robin Phillips in. The album's called Return from the Source. There's a nifty little link I've got, which is robinphillips.herenow.com. That's really cool because you can actually choose your streaming service via that little portal. I really like that because you're not trying to give people different links. Otherwise, on nearly all the platforms, social platforms, I'm at Planet Rep Music, like a whole planet of music. Planet Rep Music, R-E-P Music. It's my initials. Because I get involved in so many different things, it made sense. I just started thinking of myself as a whole world of music, not in an arrogant way, but just
Yeah.
I couldn't sit down to one thing. But it's great to go to America on that road trip that inspired the songs, record them all over the place, New Orleans, New York, England, France. And then to be sitting here talking to you in Kansas City
Absolutely.
before I fly out to Germany to start talking about it with a whole bunch of people around, the world about it. That's pretty cool, man.
It's awesome. Well, it's been so good to riff with you, and we genuinely did an improv set here, so it's been wonderful to delve into so many things, delve into the album. So thank you so much. Travel well, and hopefully we catch up down the line. I have no doubt we will.
Thanks, Joe. Listen, anytime you want to talk to me, please do, and please do let me know where I can listen back to this, because it's always nice. It's always nice to hear these things and go, oh, okay, that made sense. Well, that didn't.
I totally dig it. Jazz fans, Joe Domino here, the host of the weekly Neon Jazz radio show and regular interview series being produced and distributed from Lee Summit, Missouri. We are very excited to let you know about the second annual Lee Summit Jazz Festival taking place again this summer on June 28th at the Bridge Space, located at 210 Southwest Market Street in downtown Lee Summit. Following the success of the 2024 festival, the lineup will include Lee Summit students, Casey Area Youth Jazz, Paganova with Michael Pagan, Horoscope with Stan Kessler, Brad Gregory, Adam Larson, and the Lee Summit Jazz Orchestra. There will also be food trucks and vendors to round out a day of celebration. Early bird tickets are 2 for $30, and all details can be found at lsjazzfest.com. We can't wait to see you there.